do that. If you can see that option. There we go. Perfect.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello. So basically the way this is going to work, we're gonna do a little bit of club business, and then Joanne's going to talk to us a little bit today, and we'll get an introduction for you in a bit. But I do want to start off with the pledge. It is really funky when we try and do it through Zoom. So what I'm going to say is everyone please mute yourselves, or Cheryl, if you can hear now, go ahead and mute everybody. I'll say the pledge. You guys can say it to yourselves, and then we'll go. So let's do this. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Liberty for all.
That's always fun to see how that's going to work on a Zoom. All right, let's move on to club business. And I don't have my agenda in front of me, so I'm going to apologize. I'm going to wing this a little bit, but let's start with. I'm not going to check for pins. I don't think we need to worry about that. I'll just assume everyone has them on and I can't see them. That's right. Perfect. But do we have any committee updates at this time? I want to start off with that. Anna, looks like you might be the resident. I don't see Linda on, so you might be the resident blind dinner date speaker. If you've got any updates on that.
We are working on it, and it'll be wonderful. And
wow.
We expect you all to participate because it's one of the tenets of our organization to rally around our charity partners. And so we're excited to announce later what that will look like.
Nice. That was well done. What about others? Kyle, do you have anything on Drive Provision coming up? I know it's a lays out.
Yep, just sent out an email to the committee. Gosh, I think end of last week. First committee meeting is going to be next Friday, January 29th at noon on Zoom. If you didn't get that email and want to be part of Drive Provision 2021, let me know. We certainly welcome you. The date for our Drive Provision is June, I think it's 21st. Let me just double check on that.
Sure.
Make sure the 21st is.
It is.
June 21. So okay. June 21, mark your calendars. January 29th, next Friday, first committee meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. Eyeglass, I know we had a brief update not too long ago, but for the larger group we've got here, maybe we want to talk about where that stands.
Is that me?
Can be.
Yeah.
We're still in the same position we were. We are doing a small amount of eyeglass. It's very controlled because it's a tight space. So we're not looking for any volunteers to come in right now. We hope when the weather gets, as things go along and in the summer, we can work outside. So at that point, we definitely can move. Excuse the way I speak. I got cotton in my mouth from surgery this morning. So,
no. Well, thanks for talking at all. Wow.
We're in good shape for when we're ready to go on a trip again. For the most part, I mean, we can get it in place quickly. So nothing for the moment.
Okay. And along those lines, Gary, tentative ideas on trips. Do you want to share with the larger group? Vision missing?
Our first realistic trip, our safest realistic first trip will be probably to Jamaica, because when they open the borders and we're able to go and we decide we're all healthy enough and it's safe enough there, we know the hosting down there is dependable. So that will probably be the next trip that we will make. And talking to Scott yesterday about it, he couldn't be on today because he's on a plane coming home right now. But we would look at not just doing kids, but trying to add a couple of days of adults and maybe incorporating the medical people that work with the ISA Foundation in the neonatal, because that's their real big mission. So seeing the medical people, the adults, and doing exams on them, potentially with the used glasses or making new ones for them. So
okay,
we can make that move quickly when things open up. Obviously, It's not going to happen in the next couple of months, but maybe in the fall or later. So,
Okay.
Gary,
yes.
I'm not sure if the Sandals people are the ones that host us there, right?
No,
Oh, they're not. Okay.
it's not. It's the ISA Foundation from the Couples Resorts.
Okay.
Couples, not Sandals. No,
That's
that's
okay.
a competitor. But
Okay.
they're ready to, the ISA Foundation, the ISA family is ready to have us there. They've got capacity and they're, like before, they're ready to do it as soon as we can, as soon as the country can. As soon as it's safe.
Then we'll have to play that by ear as vaccines roll out and things change. So nobody really knows where we're going to be in the fall at this point. Other updates. I don't know if we've heard anything on VI Sports Day recently, if that's even going to happen this year, or what that situation looks like. Does anyone on this call have an update there?
Talking to Pat Gross, there are no plans for it right now at all. It's not on the board. There's no plans.
Okay, good. Thanks for that. Any other updates, committee members, chairs for the good of the club that need to be addressed here in this meeting that should be brought up? Not hearing anything? Okay, all right. Then we can move on. Obviously, we aren't going to do our traditional raffle. We're not in person. There's a lot of stuff that we're just going to skip. So if there is nothing else that anyone would like to bring forward, I'm going to move right into introducing, asking Shelley to introduce Joanne, but I'll open it up one more time. Anything else that needs to be addressed at this time? Okay, then Shelley, why don't you go ahead and introduce our speaker?
You bet. We do need everybody to mute because somebody's background, I think whoever's on the phone, your background is pretty, will get in the way of our presentation. So if everybody can mute.
Cheryl, you can do that as the meeting host as well. If assuming you can hear, you can do a mute all.
Whoever's on 293-2588, there you go.
Now you're muted.
You're muted, Shelley.
Now I'm muted. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, I follow my own rules. Thank you, Joanne, for being here. We have your bio. You are president of Travel by Gagnon, one of the oldest and one of the best travel agencies right here in our own backyard. You're also president of ASTA, which is the group of travel agents. So we only get the best. I have the honor of interviewing you frequently on the morning show. So it's always nice to know how prepared you are. And certainly you are a travel person yourself, with the exception of this past year. So without further ado, basically give us an update on our travel industry, domestically, internationally, hint Jamaica, and then obviously the floor of questions will be important. So Joanne Verboom, thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Shelley. Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about all the monumental changes that have happened, especially in the travel industry during the last year. And I do want to have a shout out to Lynn Francis, because I have not talked to you for a while. So hi, Lynn. And Shelley, you and I were just talking yesterday, so we were able to catch up. I would like to start out with saying that recently, just last week, the CDC announced a new regulation that will go into effect on January 26th. And this is going to cover everyone over the age of 2, including US citizens. If you travel out of the US and you want to come back to the US, you will need to provide a negative COVID test before you can get on the flight to return home. And there's a little bit of anxiousness among travelers when they heard that announcement, up until the CDC implemented that. It was relatively easy to get back into the US. Now there's going to be that one little requirement. Within a matter of hours after that announcement was made, Sandals was the first resort chain that contacted the travel industry. I got an email within 2 hours or so saying that they have been providing COVID testing on site at all of their resorts, and they're going to continue to do that. They're offering it on a complimentary basis. Takes perhaps half an hour out of your day while you're on vacation, and they'll provide you the information within a very short time frame. The CDC requirements say that you need to have this negative COVID test done within 72 hours of your return flight. So you need to time that correctly. Many of the resorts, when you check in, will make an appointment for you right then. So you know within 72 hours of your return flight where you need to go, need to leave the pool area or wherever you're relaxing and go and get your quick test and be done with that. Within another few hours after Sandals made their announcement, almost all of the resorts in the Caribbean and Mexico indicated that they will also, if they hadn't already been providing those testing capabilities, they are offering them now. The vast majority of the resorts throughout the Caribbean and Mexico are offering COVID testing on site. There are a couple of resorts that are having arrangements done through local health centers, but that's where your local travel professional can guide you. Certainly it would be much more convenient to stay at a resort that has the testing facilities right on the grounds of the resort. And I will say that many of the airlines now are also offering even more leniency if you're scheduled to go out of the country and you don't want to actually have that COVID test done before you return. If you were planning on coming back to the States after January 26th, which is the start date of this new requirement, the airlines are allowing you to change your reservation and come back prior to January 26th. Not only are they not charging any of the change fees, which they've eliminated most of those at this point anyway, they're not charging you any additional money in case the airfare has gone up from the time that you originally purchased your ticket. So you're covered in that sense. We are fielding questions from people, and I think the number one question that we've heard is, if you were fortunate enough to be able to get the COVID vaccine, does that get you out of having to take this COVID test? And unfortunately, that's not the case. So even if you are able to get both of your COVID vaccines prior to your travels, you'll still need to have that negative COVID test to come back. We don't have any idea how long this CDC rule is going to be effective, whether it's just through the spring or they're going to extend it. But at this point, beginning January 26th, that is the new rule. There are a couple of exceptions. There are always exceptions to travel rules. If you are returning from the US Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico, you will not have to have a negative COVID test because that's still considered part of the US. And so that's one way to get around that little new requirement. I will say that for people who have purchased tickets to travel beyond that January 26th date, if you decide that you don't want to travel, I'm not aware of any airlines that are giving refunds for your airline tickets. They are allowing you to utilize a credit for future travel, but they're not doing any kind of refunds. Certainly there's always an advantage if you've purchased travel insurance that might alleviate some of those problems. We always recommend people purchase travel insurance, but at this point, the number one thing I can suggest is if you are planning on going on vacation within the next few months, it's very, very important that you talk to a travel professional, because this is such a fluid situation right now. We're getting new updates on a daily basis, and there are changes, not quite on a daily basis, but very, very frequently. And it's challenging even for those of us in the travel industry to keep up with it. And so it's very important that you reach out to your local travel advisor and say, hey, every year I go to this one specific resort in Jamaica, and I've done it for many, many years, and I normally just book it online. There might be some changes this year that you need to be aware of. And so reach out, whether it's to myself or to whatever travel advisor you normally work with. It's very, very important that you do that now. And I'd like to be able to open up to questions as I'm talking. So if anything pops up and you want clarification, I don't know, Cheryl, if you're able to unmute people, if that would be okay. Then maybe if people have even questions about their own personal travel, I can try and answer those at the same time.
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
Just a clarification, because, well, that's United States policy, but my understanding is a number of the airlines, and not necessarily the US based one, they're requiring COVID tests, negative tests before they even allow you to get on the airlines. Is that still?
Now, Richard, I didn't hear all of your question.
Let me, I'll try again here. I've heard that a number of airlines are requiring COVID tests before you can even get on their planes, not necessarily US based airlines, but.
And you're right. None of the US based airlines, there are some international carriers that are requesting that. It wouldn't affect any of us at this point. Whether or not that happens in the future, I'm not sure. But right now, leaving the US, there's no problem. There's no requirements, COVID testing requirements, unless you're going to a country that has a requirement, such as Jamaica right now. If you're going to Jamaica, whether it's on vacation or for work, they are requiring that you provide a negative COVID test that's taken within 10 days of your arrival. And there are some forms to fill out. It's a relatively simple process to do. They've been requiring this now for a while. How long that they will require that, I'm not sure. There are some countries that originally were requiring negative COVID tests, and they have since discontinued requiring that. If you're going somewhere like the Dominican Republic, they do spot checks in the arrival area of the airport. And so you don't have to do anything in advance with that. But even thinking about just domestic destinations, if you're flying to Hawaii, they require a negative COVID test. And a number of the airlines are facilitating that for clients because in some areas it can be a little challenging to get results back from a PCR type COVID test within a certain time frame. So the airlines have set up testing facilities at some of their hubs, say in San Francisco or Dallas. And so we've got lots of people going to Hawaii. Aside from those extra little requirements, it's a great destination to go to. So
one of the things that we have found, excuse me, Joanne, I travel outside the US a lot. Well, I haven't since March.
Yes.
But the thing is that I've been trying to get back into Asia for literally, I was told I had a ticket in October, it got canceled. I was told I had a ticket in December, it got canceled. I got all the way to Dallas and they canceled it.
It's frustrating.
And the issues become a couple of things. One is obviously the COVID test. And the second thing is that now different countries are requiring different tests beyond the standard COVID test that we can get in Grand Rapids.
Correct.
And so one of the things that isn't published anywhere that I've been able to find is what's required when you go to China or Vietnam or Japan or whatever.
Mhm.
And that is significantly restrictive. And so I was wondering if there was a place that I could know about to find that out, because I'm told now that I have to go to Detroit to get my COVID test, not Grand Rapids, because there's 3 different tests that are required, and I forget the names of them, but that I need to have 2 days before I go on the plane. And
Generally, the test that's been required that we've seen as a requirement for most countries has been the PCR test. That's kind of the gold standard. And it's very challenging to find a location in Grand Rapids to get the results back quickly enough. However,
do you know of any place that does that in Grand Rapids?
from what I understand now, the Gerald R. Ford Airport, there is a testing facility there. They've been offering it now for a few weeks. They offer both kinds of tests. And you're right that there are 3 different kinds, but the testing facility at the airport offers the PCR test and the rapid antigen test. The rapid test, you get your results within 15 minutes. The PCR test is anywhere from 24 to 48 hours.
Well, that's the paradox, because I have to have it with less than 48 hours to be able to get on the plane. And they sometimes will tell me that it will take me more than up to 48 or more to get it back.
And we've been finding that frequently also, that the other testing facilities that we've talked with in Grand Rapids have said for the PCR test that it can take even longer than 48 hours. My understanding is that the airport facility is saying that they will have the test results back within 48 hours from the time that you take the test. Now, that testing facility is open from 4 in the morning until 8 in the evening, 7 days a week. One of the only drawbacks is that the company that is doing those tests does not accept any type of insurance, so it's self-pay. The test can be a little pricey then too.
Do you have any idea what that might be?
The last that I knew, the rapid tests are $75, and I believe the PCR tests are running, I believe, 150 perhaps. If you want to get both test results at one time, they're offering a package price for it. I believe it was $160.
Okay. And then the third test is not available?
Is not available at the airport. And I believe that is the antibody test.
Right, the antibody test. And that's also available at the airport?
That one is not. It's just the rapid antigen test and the PCR test.
So where can we get the antibody test within the two-day window?
I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not sure, because I'm not aware that we've had anybody that has needed to have all 3 tests. I mean, if you want to call me this afternoon, I'll see what I can find out for you.
Yep.
And my contact number is 616-942-6630.
Okay, super. And the last question I have regarding this has to do with, if I'm not as old as some of these folks on here, but most of them I'm much older. And so I should be able to get the vaccine immediately, but I still can't find a way to get the vaccine. So when we talk this afternoon, if you have any information on how to speed that up for me, that would be great. Okay? And I will bail now and stop interrupting your wonderful talk.
Speaking of the vaccine, it would be wonderful if having the vaccine would eliminate the need to have a negative COVID test to come back into the US, but unfortunately that's not the case. And we can talk this afternoon, Ray. I was able to get my first COVID vaccine last Monday, and I'm scheduled for the second one on February 1st. So I will say that I went online at 3:30 in the morning and was able to find appointments available. So that's kind of only my secret. And I don't know if that's what gave me the ability to make an appointment or not, but I feel very fortunate that I was able to get that.
It was, I went to the primary place to get them done, and there were 749 people ahead of me, and they were going to call me back and never have.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, we can talk a little bit more this afternoon about that too. I will also say that if you are planning on traveling out of the country, and I always recommend this to anybody that is going to be traveling, need to check your passport soon and see what the expiration date is. The vast majority of countries require that your passport be valid for a minimum of 6 months prior to when you expect to return from your trip. And I know I've talked to people so many times over the years that say, oh, I've got another few months on my passport. I'll wait until a month before it expires, and then I get a longer time frame to be able to use the new one. I wouldn't recommend doing that now. From what we're told, it's taking roughly 3 months to get your passport either renewed or a brand new one. And so you don't want to really wait on having your passport renewed.
Well, if you have a visa, you also need to make sure that the visa is valid, because
Yes.
China, for example, has discontinued your old visa. I had a visa that was good for 5 more years.
Mhm.
They canceled it 100% and made me go get a new visa. So a number of countries are now doing that. So if you have to get a visa historically, and I used to be able to get my visa in the airport in Vietnam, but they've also canceled that. They've also added requirement for a visa in Hong Kong. You never had to have a visa for Hong Kong ever, but now they do.
And I know that there, for people that are traveling to areas like not as well visited, certainly if you're going to anywhere in the Caribbean or Mexico, we don't ever have to worry about visas. But anytime you go overseas, and even if you're going to South Africa, even some areas in Asia, the visa requirements can be quite cumbersome at times. And there have been so many changes. And the one thing that I've learned over the years, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, that in the travel industry, the rules and regulations are never cut in stone. What is announced today as a rule can change in a couple of hours. And so what you're used to doing in the past, what you've experienced in the past when it comes to entries into different countries or any kind of travel requirements, those change relatively often. And especially when you're going international, a lot of those rules have changed. So yes, it's whether you're going back to Vietnam or Hong Kong multiple times or you've never been, those are all kinds of destinations that you definitely want to be verifying what your entry requirements are. And some countries have very specific rules when it comes to even where the visa goes in your passport. Sometimes you need to have multiple pages that are available, multiple facing pages that are available for visas. Some places are very easy. I mean, you can, I remember going into Istanbul and just getting the visa right there. Same with South Africa one time. But things change. So that's another reason you need to talk with your travel advisor and say, hey, you know, I'm used to going to these places frequently, but I need to know if anything has changed. Does anybody else have any questions on what we've talked about so far? I do want to mention to people, because this is something that has just recently been changed again. If there are any people that generally travel with their pets, and there are lots of people that do, especially from West Michigan going down to Florida or the warm weather states and spending the winter months in sunshine. I know I've flown lots and lots of times where people have got their pets in carriers. The last few years, we've seen a lot of animals that are not in carriers. And there have been a fair number of people that found a loophole that they could say that their pet was an emotional support animal. Well, the Department of Transportation has created a new rule, which is in effect now, that emotional support animals need to abide by the same rules as your pet, which means they need to fit in a carrier that will fit underneath the seat in front of you, which means a very small dog or cat. They need to stay in the carrier during the entire flight. You can't have them sitting on your lap. Can't have them running around the cabin or anything. The only animals now that will be allowed on board flights are service dogs, and those have to be certified. And what I will say in advance, if you're traveling with a service animal or you're traveling with your pet, you need to make a reservation for them at the same time you're making your own flight reservation, because the airlines limit the number of animals they will allow both in first class and in coach. And once they've reached that limit, they won't allow any additional animals on board. And so you're not allowed then to just show up at the airport and say, oh, I decided to bring my kitty with me on this trip. Because if there are multiple animals already reserved for spaces on the flight, you won't be able to bring your fur baby with you. So that's a new rule that's been implemented. And I will say that part of what was happening, I think, is that people were trying to avoid having to pay the pet fee, and those can be very pricey. Most of the airlines charge $125 each way to bring a pet in the cabin. And the airlines were losing a lot of revenue. And so now with this new Department of Transportation rule, there's an estimate that the airlines are going to recoup over $59 million every year on pet fees. So that's just a heads up if you ever do travel with your furry creatures. And one of the other things that I wanted to mention is that if you've got children or grandchildren and you're thinking of going to Disney, one of the #1 travel destinations, especially from West Michigan, they've got a few changes going on. They certainly do respect any of the COVID stay safe rules. They require everyone to wear a mask. They implement social distancing rules at the parks. They're limiting the number of people that are on the rides, and they're limiting the number of people that are actually going into the parks also. And I know that when this started and they first reopened the parks last July, there were people that figured out, oh, I don't have to wear a mask if I just walk around the park carrying a soda in my hand. Well, Disney has added another little feature to their rule that If you're going to be dining at all at any of the Disney parks, you need to be stationary, either sitting at a table or at least stationary in order not to have your mask on. The other thing that they're doing for those people that go to Disney often, beginning next year, they're going to eliminate that Disney Express shuttle service from the airport. That was a nice free perk that they offered, and that's not going to be offered any longer. You can still obviously take shuttles from the airport to any of the parks, but there will be a cost for that. But as everything is changing in the world with COVID restrictions and rules and companies adjusting to things, my number one piece of advice is that you either email or pick up the phone and contact your local travel advisor and say, hey, we're really tired of being cooped up and we're tired of not traveling and we want to plan something with our family, but talk to a professional before you try and do this online, because there's a lot of things to know at this point. And if anyone has any more questions, I'm here for as long as you need me. And Cheryl, I don't know if you can unmute everybody. If there's any other questions, that would be great.
They can actually unmute themselves, so if they have a question, they will.
Okay.
I have one follow-up question. And I haven't flown for almost a year, so they say that it's cheap to fly now. Do you anticipate those numbers, if I want to run down to Tampa, increasing as restrictions are lessened, Joanne?
That's a great question. We're seeing that airfares are significantly less than they had been even a year ago. I mean, we're seeing phenomenal prices to places like Las Vegas. I haven't seen prices like this for probably a good 20 years. We were finding round trip airfare out of Grand Rapids with moderate priced hotel on the Strip in Las Vegas for around $250 a person. And I mean, prior to COVID, you couldn't hardly find an airfare to Las Vegas for that cost. And we're seeing much more reasonable costs for airfare. Some of the hotels now, because they had so many people cancel last year and they're rebooking now for this spring season, the hotels are, and certainly many of the hotels are limiting the number of people that are staying. They're restricting the percentage of rooms that are being occupied at any one time. So we're not seeing as great a discount on hotels and resorts, but certainly with airfare. And the other thing is the vast majority of airlines have waived any change fees. So if you buy a ticket now thinking that, oh, gee, in May, I want to go and visit family, and it comes to May and you just don't feel comfortable traveling, you wouldn't get a refund on that airline ticket, but you would get a credit to use for future travel. So you're not losing anything at that point.
You are losing the opportunity at the same fare. So for example, I did book a fare that was, let's say, at $3,000, and it's now at $5,000, and I have to pay the difference.
That's correct.
In addition to that, the domestic flights, as you indicated, are much less, but the international flights are much, 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 I can keep going, more.
Yes.
I typically fly to China for somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,200 to $1,800. But if I want to fly to China in the cheap seats today, it's somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000.
Excuse me, part of that is because the number of flights that are being offered has been significantly reduced, especially for international travel. Even with domestic travel, we certainly aren't experiencing the quantity of flights that are available. Whereas,
Yeah,
go-
that's true. But in addition to that, you don't sit next to somebody internationally. Domestically, when I flew to Dallas, I flew on one of the 175s,
Mhm.
the smaller commuter units.
regional
And
jets.
I could still rub skin with the guy next to me.
There are only 2 airlines right now that are still blocking the middle seats. And, you know, for people that especially haven't flown for a while, if they're concerned about how crowded the flights are, we certainly suggest that we choose one of those 2 airlines. But otherwise, the other carriers are all selling the flights to capacity. So they tend to be more full, because whereas we might have had 10 flights out of Grand Rapids to a certain hub each day, we might only have 6 now. And so certainly there's been a significant reduction in the number of flights that are being offered anywhere.
Joanne, what's happening with cruising? Is it
Question, Richard.
off the cruise right now?
There are no cruises that are authorized out of the US at this point. The CDC has implemented some very serious rules that the cruise lines need to abide by, and they're doing test cruises right now. Some of the rules, the initial report that I saw was 64 pages long about the regulations that the cruise lines will need to follow in order to be allowed to cruise out of the US.
Mm.
And some of those rules encompass having additional doctors or quarantine space set aside for people. I know that with Royal Caribbean, they had put out a call to their past cruisers that they were looking for volunteers to do some of these test cruises. They had over 150,000 people volunteer for those test cruises. And at this point, there are cruises that are happening in Asia, and they have gone fine. There was a false report at one point of someone who tested on board, and it was a false negative test. And when they redid the test, they actually redid the test a couple of times. The gentleman was not infected. But at this point, the majority of cruise lines that we're familiar with, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Princess, Holland America, Carnival, they have all paused their cruises through at least April. Some of them have paused their cruises until later in the summer. And we actually were notified earlier today about another cruise line that's pausing their cruises for a while. There's a lot of pent-up desire to go back on cruises, and we have people calling every week booking cruises for this fall and for the following spring. And we're just hoping that by this fall, the ships will be accepting passengers again. The majority of the cruises that sailed out of the US, they've brought their ships back, and they're off the port of, if you're in some of the areas in Florida and you look off the coast, you'll see them lined up. They're just waiting to be able to accept passengers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to break in real quick here and make a little announcement. I should have said this earlier, but we do have one person who's dialed in, and with everyone being muted, the person who's dialed in on an actual phone, to be able to unmute, if you have a question, *6 on your phone. 6 is the M for mute. So you can *6 and it'll take you off mute. *6 again will put you back on mute. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, and I'm sorry I didn't catch who it is at the 293-2588 number, but feel free to take yourself off mute with *6 if you have a question.
And Ben, I'd also like to give my phone number out again if people have individual questions about maybe a trip that had gotten canceled with them or interested in going on a trip. Please feel free to give me a call. My local number is 616-942-6630, and I'm with Travel by Gagnon on Cascade Road, just down the street from Dean's
Good
office.
afternoon. I put that in the chat as well, so everyone can see it there. Like our dial-in person might have a question. Did you have a question? Who is it?
It's Harry, and no, I'm listening to the conversation. First time I've been able to get on.
Okay. All right. Hi, Harry. Welcome. Glad you're with us.
Hello, Harry.
Hello.
Any other?
Also, no lead and I.
So Harry, with the office noise in the background, I would say just if you don't have questions, just go ahead and do *6 again. Perfect. And then we'll keep you with us here and you can listen. Any other questions for Joanne? Not seeing any. It is very interesting. So thank you, Joanne. I mean, it's always good to hear how things are changing as travel restrictions are moving around and airports are doing crazy things. So this was interesting and useful.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that when you get back to Jamaica for your program there, things go smoothly. And Gary, when you were talking about the couples resorts that you work with, I actually had the Sandals sales representative in my office today. I mean, social distancing, mask wearing, and everything, but they're certainly doing well in Jamaica. The COVID numbers are very, very minimal in on the Caribbean islands. They've been so cautious because they do have limited resources. They don't have as many hospitals as we do. So they've been very, very cautious. But they've done a wonderful job at being safe with how they've handled the resorts. And I will say a lot of the resorts were closed for a number of months, but the vast majority of them are open now and inviting travelers back, and people that we've talked to that have returned from whether it's been Mexico or anywhere in the Caribbean have had a wonderful time and have not felt uncomfortable at all.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we can. Brent, did you have one?
I don't have a question. I just have a travel point I'd like to share with the club. My Air Force son drove his plane across the pond yesterday for a couple of months.
Which pond?
Which pond?
Yes.
The East Pond.
East Pond. Nice. Like all the way
So
across?
I'll be gone for a couple of months. Don't know where.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Nice. Well, that's an adventure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I hope he's safe.
Absolutely. Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up. So thank you again, Joanne. I'm gonna give you a virtual round of applause if everyone wants to join in here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And if anyone, as I mentioned, if anyone has any other questions, please reach out to me. I'm in my office Monday through Thursday, and I'd be happy to help you with if you've had canceled plans or you really want to get away from gloomy December, January, February weather here in Michigan. I can find some place that has sun for you.
Well, the one thing that I'd like to say is that, first of all, thank you for your information. And as you indicated, having information that's up to date is not easy today, which is really critical to most people. The other thing is that I just had some friends who normally we usually go to Mexico with, who they canceled their plans to Mexico down in I'll call it the Cancun related area, and it was because of fear, because of the lack of knowledge.
Yes.
And one of the things that that you might want to think about is, Shelley, with you, the great job that you do announcing stuff to the people. If there's a way to have an ongoing, periodic, short version on your program, because right now everything changes so often, so frequently, and so dramatically around the world that anything that you could do to communicate that beyond our wonderful club would truly be a wonderful thing, I think, to our community. So
Well,
whatever.
Joanne does join me every month for about 20 minutes, the third Monday of every month. So with the exception of breaking news, she's, obviously stellar and was my first choice of who's going to speak on the program. But I'll take that in consideration, Ray, but know that the third Monday, Joanne's with me for a good 20 minutes talking exactly what she talked about today. So thank you, Ann and Ray. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. The unfortunate part is things change every week today.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And so I just throw that on the table. I mean, you're a busy lady, so I don't want to, I'm not trying to throw more on your plate. I'm just giving an idea.
We'll take it and run. You know it.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, of sharing some of the current information on travel. And I know whenever Shelley's needed something, even last moment, she knows how to reach me. Doesn't matter what time of day or night it is. And I'm happy to come back anytime you would like another update.
Well, another thought that I just had, and I have them once in a while, is that as something changes that you know of that just changed, notify Shelley so that she can just take a 3-minute an update the weeks that you're not on there. So say just an update on the COVID-19 thing, travel, here's the situation, blah, blah, blah. If anybody needs to have any additional information to contact you maybe, or somebody. But just to constantly keep up to date with this particular issue, because there are a lot of people that watch this wonderful lady called Shelley Irwin, and therefore they need to know about the travel stuff. So
I'd be happy to join your lovely group and Shelley anytime. You just need to ask.
All right. All right. Well, I think I'm going to call it at this point. So thank you, Ray. Thank you, Shelley, for us. And thank you, Joanne, for being on. So much appreciated.
Thanks, man.
And I think for now, we are adjourned. This is the best I can do. Here we go. What you get.
Great. Thank you very much.
Bye, all.